Welcome to the complete animation of Jade from Arctic Dogs. Arctic Dogs is a really interesting animated feature, but it's also a very lopsided one for me. I don't think it's all that good, but I also don't think it's all that bad. One of the things that I hate the most in, popular movie review culture is everybody has to have the most extreme views possible. If a movie has a bunch of bad parts or parts that you don't like, then that means that the movie itself is bad. That's how basically the rest of the world views movies, at least as far as, the big movie critics, especially on YouTube, are concerned. But I like to have a more nuanced view. It's like, if the visuals are good in a movie, then the visuals are good. Doesn't matter how bad the story is, the visuals are still good visuals. This movie doesn't have the best visuals, but I think they're pretty good. And I think that the character animation is actually much better than you would expect, given the budget and overall art style that this movie has. The characters usually move pretty well, and one of the nice things about this movie is just the sheer difference in scale between all the characters, because there's a fox who's so much smaller than a polar bear. There's a walrus who doesn't have legs. They do things in this movie that actually make a bit of sense. And I enjoy that. I think that the lighting is often really good. Like, there are some scenes where the lighting is just really appealing. There are some scenes where the lighting is just flat, but the fact that there are some that are appealing, that's a mark in this movie's favor. And I often think that the fur effects, the fur and feather, actually looks pretty good a bunch of the time in this movie. And I'm just really bummed that the movie went completely off the rails to go from a very simple story, a very straightforward, simple story of a young guy who has a dream job. And it's not even like a crazy job. He doesn't want to be like the president. He doesn't want to rule the world. He wants to help deliver packages to the members of his community. Like, that is what he wants to do. And, that's a pretty admirable dream to have. And I don't think that changing the story to being one about defeating some over-the-top Bond-esque villain was really why couldn't we have just kept the story of that? You could have had, some natural disaster that had to be averted, and he did his part. He didn't single-handedly save the town or anything like that, but he did his part. I really just think that this movie did not need to have John Cleese play a mustache-twiddling walrus villain. I like John Cleese, but I do not like his character in this movie. I don't like what that character did to the movie. It just completely took it off the rails. So one of the things that I think is interesting in Arctic Dogs is that all the characters wear shoes, because there's a bunch of other movies with animal characters where they don't. And, fair enough. Like, one of the things that animals do is they walk around on their feet. Humans wear shoes, and so just one extra thing that you can do in the design of an animal character is have them also walk around on their feet. But there are a couple shots in this movie that actually show off the shoes, and they're actually pretty good shoes. Like, they're pretty detailed. They've got good detail on the sole where you don't usually see them very often. Just, I like the shoes in this movie because I like boots. I like to wear boots. I think that they're comfortable. Good leather boots that fit you well are just really comfortable, and I like wearing them, and I like seeing that the people in this movie wear them too. Now, one of the interesting things about how I make my videos is I usually make them as my listening to long video essays videos. Like, there are some people who, when they watch long video essays, they do something a little bit monotonous, but just engaging enough to let you be doing something while you're watching a really long thing that is mostly there to be listened to. Some people play games like Power Wash Simulator, or they grind levels in Destiny 2. You know, there's different things that you can do to keep your hands and mind slightly busy while you're consuming really long videos or podcasts or audiobooks. And I edit my YouTube videos while I do that. I keep the audio track muted, so it's just the visuals, and I have spent literally hundreds of hours over the past few years just making these videos, and it does a lot to help me get through it, and I do the editing. But what ends up happening is I end up finishing editing a video, and then I never, finish the video, make the audio track that you're hearing right now. And what ends up happening is I have a whole lot of videos that have their editing finished, but I never get around to making the narration. And, full disclosure, I finished editing this video probably a year and a half ago. It's been a really long time since I've even seen this footage. And for someone who tries to, talk a good bit about the movies that I made the video for, it's not the best when you want to talk about the movie, but you haven't actually seen the movie in over 2 years. So I saw this movie over 2 years ago, edited this video over a year and a half ago, and so now I'm coming back and making this commentary on it, and I'm trying to talk about how I felt about the movie with some pretty vague recollections of it. And that often happens to a lot of the videos I make. And rewatching parts of the movie now, there are a lot of things that are sticking out to me that I either forgot about or I'm noticing for the first time. Like, just how bushy this Jade character's tail is. I think that if you're going to make animal characters with exaggerated features, one of the best places to do it is in the tail. Because humans do not have tails, and animals do, and if you want to emphasize the animalness of a character, the tail is often a good place to do it. One of the other things that this movie does is it has very large heads for its characters. Like, impossibly large. I remember seeing a cutaway of Bolt, and they showed how not a cutaway, but like a skeleton of Bolt, and they showed, yeah, in order for this character to work, his head is so much bigger than a regular dog's head. And even more so with Mittens. Mittens' head in the movie Bolt is so much bigger than a regular cat's head would be. But Bolt, it was able to keep those proportions relatively modest, all things considered. But now you come to Arctic dogs, and then you see Jade. Her head is massive. It's not so massive that it is like a glaringly obvious issue with the movie, but it's really big. And her eyes are also huge. It's like, you look at the size of her eyes and then you look at the size of her chest cavity. I don't think that her eyes could fit where her, like, inside her rib cage. Her eyes are bigger than her heart. But, you know, that's just one of the things that you can do with cartoons. Although, I think that I would have preferred a smaller head and a more pronounced muzzle. One of the things that I really dislike, especially in anime, is art styles that give animals super small muzzles and mouths. Just, it's like one of the defining features of animals is just how long their faces are compared to ours. And yeah, it makes them closer to humans, but what I think it really does is it makes them closer to cats. And for some reason, there are so many people who really like the faces of cats. Just a house cat, the way its face is, with a relatively small muzzle compared to other predators, their large eyes. Like, I'm pretty sure that the reason why Jade is the way she is, at least with her face, is because they basically wanted to make her look more like a cat. Which is a shame, because I think that canines have really appealing faces. Dogs and wolves, I really like how their faces are, and that includes foxes. So here we are in the video, getting to the part where they're doing their escape from the Bond-esque villain trap. And truth be told, I really think that this is the weakest part of the movie. It's like, yeah, it has some of the most impressive action, but the older I get, the less I feel like action is the selling point of a movie. Don't get me wrong, well done action is amazing. But action for the sake of action just doesn't do it for me anymore. I want substance in my story beats. And the substance of this part of this story is really unappealing to me. I really think that this movie would have been better if the John Cleese walrus character didn't exist, and there never was a plan to take over the world or anything like that. I think that this movie would have been better if they would have found a way to just stick to the small town guy and his small town dreams and achieving those. It doesn't even have to be, you know, like as big of a thing as was shown in the movie Balto, where he was the one who braved blizzard and snow to save the entire town. Not the entire town, but the children of the town. Like, you can lower the stakes. I think that's one of the problems that a bunch of stories make. They make the stakes way too high. In fact, in the story that I'm writing, I'm the author of a webcomic called Wolfsbane. I struggle with keeping the stakes a bit more personal. Because yes, the entire kingdom is in danger, but I'm trying to keep the story more intimate, where, yes, the kingdom is in danger, but the story is really about a few individual characters and their personal lives and the small part that they play in saving. Mostly they do it for, their close ones, their loved ones, but, it benefits the entire kingdom as well. So, this one, why did they have to make the stakes so high? Why did it have to eventually devolve into one guy trying to rule the world? And it brings me back to a concept that Don Bluth illustrated in his novel. He said that when you're writing a story, you need to always ask 3 questions. Who's your hero? Who's your villain? And who's your jester? Or joker? You need 3 things. You need somebody who provides some comedic relief, you need a hero who you're rooting for, and you need an antagonist. But I think that you could simplify it a little bit more is, why do we care about these characters? Who are we rooting for? What is there to break up the story with just a little bit of levity? And what are they fighting against? It doesn't even have to be a person. Like, good villains are awesome, but I find that there are many stories where it's just the situation they're fighting against is much more appealing than if it was an individual villain. And I think this movie would have been better if it had done that. Thanks for watching.